Welcome back. There is one more option in the DHCP filter option is that you want to allow and deny any of the MAC addresses to getting the services from the DHCP server. In order to do that, just navigate to your DHCP server. Just go at the bottom of the hierarchy of IPv4. There is an option called filters. If you want to allow a specific MAC address to get the DHCP server, because if it's from the client network or from any other BYOD device, and you want to specify that if you see this device, you should get an IP address from the DHCP server, just say new filter, and then you have to specify the MAC address along with the description. Once you do add, it will gonna automatically get the service from the DHCP server. Similarly, if you see that there is any unwanted data or any unwanted network influxes coming from any device from the client or any device from the user, which is unnecessarily exploiting the network, you can go ahead and deny that particular device MAC address here. In order to do that, just do a right click, new filter, specify the MAC address with the description, so it will be easier for you for the recognition in the future. And you click add, it will gonna automatically start denying and the service for the DHCP server for that particular object in your network infrastructure. Thank you. Hey all, welcome back. Let's see that how we can do the delegate control in the Active Directory. In order to do that, we have already launched our Active Directory console, and after that we have to do a right click, and it will gonna give us an option for delegate control. Over here, once you click on that, it will gonna show you a pop-up which is saying welcome to the delegation of control wizard. Just read if you want to see what details you can, or what the different type of permissions and access you can give it to the the delegation group or the delegation authority. Then click next, followed by you have to add users or group depending on your requirement. So suppose if I want to add a user saying test, which we have already created in the previous video. So say if I want to give a delegate control to test3, I'll say okay, and next. After that, it will gonna give me an option what type of controls I want to give to this particular user. Either you want to give him a user, give this user an access to create, delete, or manage accounts, or if you want to give him a option to just to do the password reset, just have the read all user information, to create groups, to manage policies. Depending on your network infrastructure requirement or that particular delegate control requirement, you can select the check boxes from here. So suppose if I want to give them only the access for create, delete of the account and reset the password, I'll select these two check boxes and click next. If you feel that everything is good as per the things you have configured, just click finish, and it will gonna automatically create a delegate control for the test3 in our network infrastructure. Thank you. Welcome back. In the last video, we have seen that how we can enable the DHCP server rule on our server. But now let's see how we can configure our DHCP server with our existing domain on the Active Directory. In order to do that, just launch your server manager, and once you click on the DHCP, it usually takes you to this console where it's asking for the configuration that's required in order to complete this task. Just click on more, and it will gonna give you an option here. Just say complete DHCP configuration. It will gonna just show you another prompt which is asking for to click next. I'll say yes. I'll say commit. And authorization is getting failed. Let's see why the authorization is getting failed. Just click next. I'll say specify. Let me go to the Active Directory first. Let me create another user named admin. And let's see whether the admin have the membership of administrator group. It do. Let's go ahead and do a reset. Let's do a reset password here for the administrator. So the new account we'll be using is administrator here. Well, let's see whether this one has the access or not. administrator. And since this account have the fully authority on my server, it have configured the DHCP server in all the scenarios. Now let's go back to our DHCP server and do a refresh. Let's do authorization. I think that one is missing. Authorize is 10.0.2.15. Okay. So it's already authorized for my server. And delete this one, and we're gonna create a new one. So that's the way you usually configure your DHCP server, and now you can see that your DHCP server has been activated in our role, and you can verify the same from your server manager role as well from here. So it says it's your online, the DHCP server. Thank you. Here, sorry, I missed one thing in the video. That how to add the IPv4 and IPv6. Earlier, the error what I was getting is because that I do have the same IP address on my virtual environment, and that's why it's not letting me to configure the server. So the moment I receive that particular server from my infrastructure, it automatically adds the IPv4 and IPv6. So that's the way you usually configure your DHCP server. Hey all, welcome back to my channel. Today we will gonna see that how we can configure the DHCP server in our network infrastructure. In order to do that, the first thing you have to launch your server manager. Just select the second option, says add rules and feature. Just say next. We're still gonna go with rule-based or feature-based installation. It's for the same pool. And after that, if you scroll it down to the bottom, there's an option for DHCP server. You just need to check box this one and say add feature. Click next. It doesn't need to add anything from here. Just say next and say next. You can always select this option that once this particular server is already installed, the DHCP server, it will automatically reboot. If you require some change management approvals, then do not select this particular option. Just say install, and it will gonna take somewhere about 2 to 3 minutes in order to download that particular rule on your machine. Just wait for that, and once it's done, you will be able to see that our DHCP console will gonna pop up. I'm just pausing the video. So I just continue it, and you will be able to see that it says the DHCP installation has been completed. Now just say close, And in order to check it that whether we are still able to see our DHCP server or not, you can select from the left hand side pane, and it shows you that it's already online. Now let's go and see the DHCP server. Just type DHCP and it will gonna give you an option for the desktop app. For the first time, it usually takes somewhere about 20 to 30 seconds, and see, it's already been added to our roles and features. Now, if I want to add a server in my infrastructure, I'll just gonna say add server. Now I'll say this particular server is DHCP. So I'm gonna say 10 dot or this server. Say browse. Okay. 10.0.2.15. I'll say okay. So that's my server, DHCP server. Hey all, welcome back to my channel. Let's see that how we can create the scope in a DHCP server. I have already showed you in the previous video that how you can configure the DHCP role as well as the DHCP server in your infrastructure. Once you configured both, the next step is that how you can specify the scope in your infrastructure. There are two ways. The first, you can go with IPv4, IPv6. I'm just gonna go ahead and demonstrate you with the IPv4, and the same you can replicate for the IPv6. Just do a right click on the IPv4. It's asking you for the new option, say new scope. It gives you a new wizard. Just say next. Whatever the name you want to specify, I'll say test DHCP. That's the name I want to give. Suppose for this is for a particular location, I'll just gonna say New York, and I'll say next. Now I have an option to specify the start and end IP. So let's say my start IP is 10.0.2.1. The end IP is 10.0.2. I'll say 100. Sorry, 2.100. That's my first scope I want to create. Now it's up to me that what type of subnet mask I'm using. It's depending when I'm using CIDR or any other subnet mask. If not, I'll just leaving it by default just for the educational purpose. I'll say next. It's asking me that what type of IP I want to exclude in my infrastructure, because we have already configured 10.0.2.15 to my server. Similarly, you do have your switches, firewalls, printers, and other server or other equipment. You can specify their IP address, or you can give them a range. I'll say 10.0.25. Do not assign this IP address to any other device because I am manually assigning this IP address. So DHCP will not gonna issue any of these IP from its scope. Now I'll say next. Now it gives you an option for the lease duration. By default, the lease duration is 8 days. You can specify to it to minimum as 0 day for 1 minute, 2 minutes, depending on your need. Suggestion would be usually we go with 1 day or few hours, because sometimes if there is more user influx in the office, it will be pretty much tough to maintain your DHCP server, or as per your need, you can specify the lead time period. Just say next. Now it's asking me one more option, that do I want to configure the this scope now. I'll say yes, I want to configure this option now. It's also asking me for the router IP address. Suppose if you do have a router in your infrastructure or a print server or any other thing, previously we just excluded the range. Now it's asking me for specific IP address. I'll say 2.15. I want to exclude it. So it will not gonna again I'll say assign this IP address from its scope to anyone. Or similarly, basically you can use it for the gateway as well. It's 10.0.2.1. I'll say I'll assign this one. I'll remove the previous one because I don't need it. And that's the way we usually specify the gateway. And now it's asking me for my domain infrastructure. If you haven't configured your domain architecture, it will not gonna give you this window. In our scenario, we have already configured. That's why it's giving me this option. We have already specified this is my server IP, do not assign to anybody. That's why it's automatically coming up here. I'll say next. Now it's asking me if I do have any wins on net BIOS computer I want to exclude from the DHCP. I doesn't want to do anything. I'll say next. You want to activate the scope now? Yes, I want to activate, and I'll say finish. The moment you do that, it will gonna automatically start doing this for me. Now if you do it here, it shows you the reservation, what type of reservation you have it, what is the address leases, what is my current pool R, and what is the DHCP scope details. If you want to see the statistics, you can just do a right click on top of it. It says display statistics. It shows you what is the current utilization of my scope. Now there is one more thing for the reservation. Suppose now after the configuration, there is a challenge that there is a new server or new router comes into the scope, and now you have to reserve that particular IP address. How you will gonna do that? Just go or to navigate to this page. Just do a reservation, say new reservation. Now specify the name of the reservation. I will say new. Specify the IP address 0.2.45. Maybe this is my new printer. I'll just specify the MAC address and the description. Now I want to look at the bottom and see what type of support type I need. Boot to your DHCP. Quickly we go with the both option, and then I'll say add. Currently it will gonna give me an error because I didn't specify the MAC address and description. Similarly, if you want to go ahead and specify the MAC binding, you can do it from here as well. So by doing this, you are saying that in future, whenever any machine coming up from this MAC, it will automatically guess this IP address, nothing else. So by doing that, you can specify those equipment in your infrastructure. Suppose if you do have as a big clients or big users at your side, maybe CEO or big directors, you want that whenever they are logging in, it's easier for your server or easier for you that this is the IP address of their machine. They always get this particular IP address because you do have set up some rule at the firewalls for this particular IP address, or maybe you give some different type of policies and permissions. So you can specify all those things here itself. Thank you. All, welcome back. Let's see today that how we can set up the DNS server and Active Directory on our Windows Server 2022. In order to do that, the first thing you have to launch is your server manager. Over there, you have to go into the second option which says add roles and feature. The moment you click over there, it will gonna give you some option. Just click next. Followed by it will gonna give you an option whether you want to install it on a VDI or on a actual server. So you can select the first one in our scenario, and then it will gonna give you the pool name. If you have anything from the virtual disk, you can add that thing from here. If not, you can select the regular one just like mine. I have already created a DNS server, but we are gonna create another zone in that one for the reference purposes. When you want to enable the DNS services at that particular time, you just need to enable this service only. In my scenario, I have enabled both Active Directory as well as the DNS, but if you want to go with, you can enable these roles and feature one by one, not at the same time. Just click next, next, and next. It will gonna give you an option for the reboot after that. Once you do the reboot, your DNS server will be up and running, something like this. In our scenario, my machine name is testjk, and I'm gonna create a new zone, or I'll say a new DNS server in that one. So we're gonna configure a new primary zone. So the zone name, I'll say my new test. I'll say next. It will gonna ask you to make sure that you want to allow this one for the Active Directory access or not. I'll just gonna say do not allow for the dynamic updates. That is one of the most common feature that we usually select. Just say next. For the time being, I'll just say no. It should not have any forward queries. We will gonna create by our own, and it will gonna take up a minute somewhere, and then it will gonna create it the DNS server for us. So sometime it will gonna come up something like this, and you have to say finish. Sometime it gives you just say okay. Over here, you will be able to see that there's a new forward lookup zone has been created in my DNS server. Now, if I want to create a record or a new, I'll say a or quad a record, I just need to select a new host in that one, and then I'll just need to specify the name. Suppose in my scenario, if I want to give the name as ABCD, it will automatically come up with my new server FQDN and followed by the IP address. You have to make sure while setting it up, the IP address must be the static at that particular time. Currently, I doesn't want to create any PTR record, so I'll just gonna remove this thing. I'll just gonna say add host, and it will gonna say I have successfully created a new host or a new a record entry in my zone. Now after that, I have to go to the reverse lookup zone. I have to create a new reverse lookup zone as well. But before that, I have to create a reverse lookup zone for my to all the DNS and just say next. I'll say next, and it says 10.2.2. That is the IP address of my machine. I have to enter it here. Just say next, and I'm gonna select do not update automatically and finish. So it's giving me an error because I have already created the reverse lookup zone here. So after that, I'll just gonna create another. So if you want to create a reverse lookup zone, it will be something like this in the environment. Over there, it will gonna come up with the host name detail along with the FQDN which we have created. If you go back to your my test server and if you want to create a record along with a pointer detail, you just need to click on this one. It will gonna create a pointer record for the same as well. So by doing this, you can set up your DNS and the forward and reverse lookup zone in your 2022 environment. Here, welcome back. We will gonna see that how we can configure the domain controller in our infrastructure. In order to do that, just click on the flag icon in the server manager, and after that just select the promote your server to the domain controller. The moment you click on that, a page will gonna come up on this one, something like this. In this one, you do have three options. The first one is whether you want to add a domain controller to an existing domain. The second option, you will get it whether you want to add a new domain into an existing forest. And the third option, you usually get add a new forest. In our scenario, we will be going ahead and adding a new domain infrastructure in our forest. In order to do that, just select on add a new forest, and after that we will gonna specify the name of the server. Most of the time we have to come up with something like usually called ad.jkteam.com. That's what I created for the testing purpose. Once you create that one, it will gonna take you to the next page where you do have an option to pick and choose what type of server model you need it. So there are three options if you see. The first one what we usually get is that whether you want to select your function level of your forest. In our scenario, both the things is not lesser than 2016. That's why we picked and choose Windows Server 2016. Second thing, you will be get an option here that what type of controller capabilities you want to specify, whether you want to make it as a global catalog, whether you want to make it as a RODC, or you just want to create a DNS server. Depending on your requirement, you have to select these checkboxes. The third thing is you have to specify the DSRM password. Make sure that you have it something complex whenever we are configuring this particular rules. And once the password has been set up, it will gonna take you to the next screen. In this one, it will gonna give you an option whether you want to give somebody a specific DNS delegation, or if somebody is helping you from the outside, you can create the DNS delegation. If not, just click on the next. And once you click on the next, it will gonna show you a page where you have all the details of the net BIOS. Net BIOS is your basically the name of your machine, which is usually comes up by default. In our scenario, we have selected called AD, so it will be automatically populated here. Now we're gonna click on next, And once you do that, it will gonna show you the different and paths of the database server. So if you want to make a changes, you can do it, but by default, I do not recommend anybody to make the changes here. The database folder is ntds and the sysvol folder space is sysvol in our infrastructure. Just click on next, and once you do that, it will gonna show you the information that whatever we have configured so far. It will gonna show you the view script option at the bottom as well. If you satisfy with all the things that what you have configured so far, just click on the next at the bottom, and it's just gonna verify some prerequisite thing on your network infrastructure. If everything goes well, it will gonna start installing your DNS. While installing, it may be rebooting few times, so you doesn't need to worry about if it's asked you for the reboot. Just go ahead and click yes on top of it. Hey all, welcome back. Let's see today that how we can create the computers or the printer object in our Active Directory. In order to do that, we just have already launched our Active Directory console, which we have already configured in the previous videos. In order to create a computer object in our Active Directory, just select where you want to create it. Suppose if I want to create it at the very top, I'll just gonna click here, do a right click, new and computer. After that, it will gonna give you a pop-up which asking for the computer name. I'll say my computer name is test JK1234. Maybe this is my computer name. And after that, you want to assign this computer as a pre 2000 Windows version. If not, you doesn't need to select this checkbox. Just click OK, and it will gonna automatically create a new computer object in your Active Directory. Similarly, if you want to create a printer object in your Active Directory, you have to do a right click, new, and navigate to the printer option. It will gonna ask you for the share path of that particular printer. So suppose if you do have a network printer in your infrastructure, you just need to get the share path. Sometime you could have added with the IP address, or if you have already created a print server in your infrastructure, just type that one. Suppose if I'll take an example, this is my print server, and the printer name is, I'll say, black and white printer at 15th floor. So I'll just gonna give some name nomenclature which will be easier for me in the future to understand which printer and where it is located. And once you do that, just select all those things and click OK. The moment you do, it will gonna quickly verify, and if there is, it will gonna come up with that thing. For our scenario, we do not have a printer in the print, or we do not have a print server. That's why it's giving an error. Otherwise, it will gonna resolve and able to create an object over here. Similarly, you can create a file share from the same process. Just click on new and navigate to the share folder. Now, if I'll say that my share folder space is file server space new folder, that's my folder I want to share with everybody in my infrastructure. I'll just gonna do this. Sorry, this is asking for the name. So name is new folder 123. If I'll take an example, this one, just select and click OK. The moment you do that, it will gonna create two objects. One is for the computer, the other one is for the shared folder, what we have done so far. The other things what you can do with these two objects is, if you want that these should be in some specific OU or specific, I'll say, hierarchy, you just click or do a right click, and there's an option for move. After that, you can move your particular object to a designated location, and it will be coming up here itself. So it will be easy for you in the future to manage your Active Directory. So suppose if you do have multiple offices in your environment, suppose one is at the New York, the other one is at Toronto, the third one is in Delhi, fourth one is in Dubai. It's very easy that you can create 4 organizational unit, and whatever the object and computers and users at that particular location, you can move that one into the designated places. So in the future, when somebody is looking at those objects, they can quickly see and understand where these objects are in actuality located. And if they want to move, so suppose if somebody moved from Dubai to New York, You just need to go back and just say move, and now you can move the same object from Dubai to New York. Now whatever the policies that what you are pushing on the Dubai or on the New York group, that will be moved to the new user. So whenever you do that, it's very easier for you to make the changes in the policies and for the user perspective. Thank you. Welcome back. Today let's see that how we can create a user in our Active Directory, how we can enable and disable his account, how we can do the password reset, how we can move the user object from one OU to the another OU, and in the end we will see that how we can delete that particular user object. In order to create the user account, you just go to the users, or you can do over here, say click a new, and we're gonna create a new user, say new test 123. That's our new user. If you want to specify any last name, say ABC, and then you have to give a user logon name. User logon name, generally we go with the student ID or the employee ID or any number with you cannot get a replication. If you go with the name, suppose if I will select a name called Jitin, there could be a possibility that there is another Jitin in the office. Then I have to create the new account with the something called 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something at the backend. In order to avoid such confusions, what we usually do, we create with the numbers. Suppose that's the one we have created, that's a student ID or employee ID or any ID what they have it. When we click next, here is an option that you have to specify few things. You have to make sure that you go with the complex password. That is the most recommended way whenever you are creating an account. And there are 4 options in it. The first one which says that whenever a user login for the first time, the password should be get automatically dropped and the user have to change the password. Second one is whenever you are using a service account, we'll go with the user password cannot be changed and the password never expires. If you do have a, I'll say, database which is connecting to any other API and you doesn't want it that the password is keep prompting after 90 days or 180 days, there is an issue comes up at that particular time, we usually select these options. And the last one is, suppose if the user is about to start after a month, but you got the request today that you have to create the account in your Active Directory, you can go ahead and create. But in order to avoid any issues, you can select this one, and whenever the user is about to start, you can enable this account as a few hours earlier, and it will be able to, the user will be able to log in after that. So we'll go with the first one, the most common one, and I'll say next and next. By doing that, you will be creating a new user account in your Active Directory. Now, if I'll say that if I do have a new OU, if I'll say this particular, let's create a new OU as well. So there's a OU called New York. So, and I'll say this particular user belongs to the New York office. So what I have to do, I'm just gonna click here and I'll say move and I'll say New York. It will gonna automatically move that particular user account to the New York organization unit. Now, if you want to do a password reset, you just need to go to the user, do a right click, and you can do the password reset here as well. Now the challenge is, suppose if you go with a name and you doesn't know where this particular student or that particular employee lies in your Active Directory, there's an option to do for the search. You just click on it and just types, I'll say new, and it will gonna automatically come. Let's go with the entire directory and it will gonna automatically come here. You can always go ahead and do it from here as well, the password reset, or you can just do a double click on top of it and then you will get few options from here. When you select the account, in this one there is an option here that suppose if the password gets locked, you can go ahead and do a unlock account, click apply OK, and it will gonna unlock the user account. That is one of the pretty much common issue that one of the, I'll say, technical team faces. Now suppose if you want to do the password reset, you can go ahead and select the reset password. Now type the new password, and at the same time you do have an option that if the user account is logged out, you can select the unlock the user account and give them the new password. Suppose if I'll say the new password is ABC at 123, ABC at 123, and I want that the user must change this password because I'm the one who is specifying this password. So the moment the user type this password, it will gonna automatically prompt him to change the password one more time. Similarly, if the user is complaining that the password is locked or the account is locked, you can select this one option. It will gonna automatically unlock the account, as well as it will gonna give the user option to log in. Now, because I didn't select with my group policy requirement, that's why it's giving me an error. Let's select a new password, which is quite complex. I hope both the passwords are same. So if you put something complex, it will gonna come up a pop-up saying the password has been changed, and you can communicate the new password to the user. Now the thing is, if the user is supposed to start after a week, and I got the requisition today that I have to create the account, and I have created the account, but his manager said that do not enable the account unless until there is no further notification, or maybe the contract hasn't been signed by the employee on the other end. In that particular scenario, we'll go ahead and create a disable account. So when you see that you do a disable account, there is a arrow key comes up on the user account. So it means this particular user is disabled. Now if the user is trying to log in, he will definitely get an error. Now the another option is, suppose if the user is about to start tonight or maybe in after a couple of hours, you can go back and click on enable account. Now it says now pop-up comes up stating that the user account is enabled now and the user is able to log in on any machine. Sometimes it takes 5 to 10 minutes because there are few servers at the backend which need to be get replicated, or maybe because of the network delay. Otherwise, it will be replicating in all the server within few seconds. The other option that what we usually get is that if you want to copy this account and create a similar account like that. Suppose I do have an employee in my marketing team who do have few privileges, maybe like, he's added to a few groups. Now I want to create a new account which do have the similar capabilities as well as the similar groups added to him as well. So I'm just gonna do a copy and I'm just gonna create the account name. So suppose now my new account name is new test 345. Last name is something like this. Login name is something like this. And I'll say next, and password is 1234. Okay, before doing that, let me do one more thing. Let's add this particular user to the group. So you will be able to see that whenever I'm creating the new account by copying this particular object, it will also replicating the same group into his profile as well. So in order to do that, I'll just do a right click on the user, do a add to a group. Now if I'll say I think I do have a group called test, I do call test 3. Let me add both. You can add multiple groups at the same time. You just need to select control in order to add more. Just say OK and OK, and both the groups are here. Let's quickly go to its member of option, and you will be able to see this, that this user is now part of group 3 as well as test security. Now let's create a new account by copying this particular account. Let's say copied account. So easily for you, 1, 2, 3. Copy account, and I'll say next, and I'm selecting the password. Next one more time and finish. Okay. Let's say the username. Okay, I have to put something strong password. It's not taking this one. I hope this one will be fine. So here you go. So let's see that if that particular groups are coming in my copied account or not. In order to check, you can just do the double click on the account, and it will gonna automatically give you this pop-up option. Then now go to the member of, and now you are able to see that this particular account has been already have the membership of test 3 as well as the test security. So that is one of the efficient way of creating accounts by copying the another one in your infrastructure. So suppose if you are creating a new account in the marketing team, if you are creating a new account in the finance team, so you can always ask the manager that, whose copy I can copy from or whose profile I can copy from, and you can just quickly copy that particular account and create it. The other option that what I was talking about is that there is an option for the rename as well. There is a, I'll say, query about the rename of the user as well. Suppose there is a lady name called, I'll say, Sara Ali, and later on she want to change the name from Sara Ali to Sara Khan, and because she got married to someone and now she wants the new legal name. The one way of doing it that you can do it from here. The another way is just do a double click on it and change the first name, last name detail from here as well. If you go to the account, you can change the logon name as well. If somebody if somebody changed from full-time employee to a contractor or maybe to a third-party account, most of the time they got the new employer ID or the new student ID. You can create a new ID from here itself. So this is one of the way of performing these things efficiently. And thank you all.